Right.
Okay, good afternoon. Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone to this meeting of the Local Pensions Board for the Combined Fire Authority. Can we have nominations for the election of chairman as the first item, please?
Mr. Harrison.
Okay, do we have a seconder for that? Yeah, great. Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Harrison. Do you want to take over?
Right, well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, to the Combined Fire Authority Local Pension Board. If we could just go around the table and we'll identify ourselves. My name's Dan Harrison. I'm the leader of Leicester County Council and I chaired this board last year.
I'm Councillor Susan Barton from City of Leicester and I've only been to this meeting once before.
I'm Graham Hawkes, representative of the Fire Brigade Union and employee representative for this pension board.
Jim?
Sean Connor, Senior HR Partner, Derbyshire Fire and Rescue, and I provide advice for the 3 pension boards of Derbyshire, Leicestershire and Nottinghamshire.
Thank you.
Me, sorry. I'm Sarah Slater, so I'm the new Corporate Head of Financial Services within Leicester Fire. I come from South Yorkshire, so hello again, Helen. I only saw you last week.
Hi, Sarah.
So I'm not a newbie to fire services or pensions.
Good, excellent. Colin?
So Colin Sharp, Pension Senior Manager for Leicestershire Fire Rescue Service. I'm pending having to go over to Sarah at some stage.
Okay. Right, thank you all very much for that. Item 3 is apologies. Well, we've had none. The minutes. Sorry.
I've got apologies from Pete Trainer, who was meant to be the other employee representative.
Right, thank you very much for that. Yes. I propose for Vice Chairman, Councillor Susan Barton. Can I have a seconder for that, please? Thank you. Thank you very much. Right. The minutes of those last meeting have been published. Can I take them as read? Do we agree? We do. Item 5 is conflict of interest. Is there any conflicts of interest? No, thank you. Item 6 is scheme managers update. Colin.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Harrison. So the purpose of this, my scheme managers report, as usual, is to provide an update on the management of the firefighters pension scheme, which this board is responsible for governing on behalf of the Combined Fire Authority. So, as in my previous reports, I've sought to focus on looking forward to deliver the tasks in hand, whilst providing some background on the Sergeant McLaren and the Matthews on retain second on options exercise. Mindful that the board has quite a period of time between its meetings and membership of the board can change from time to time as well. Also, of course, I cover routine governance matters, which are a key focus of this board, so such as breaches, audit, pensions dashboard and scheme managers' decisions. I think, whilst I'm pleased to say there has been some noticeable progress since the board's previous meeting in February, the overriding message does still remain a very high volume of work to get through, both for Leicestershire Fire Service and for Helen and her West Yorkshire Pension Fund colleagues as the administrator, and limited skilled staff resources and continued national developments and uncertainty on areas you'll be familiar with, such as the Government Actuary Department, calculator tools, pension statement formats, tax rules and interaction with pension regulations, pension software, etc. And uncertainty remains on quite a lot of the details still, which also then gives the rise for a possibility of further claims being made, further legal claims being made. The report is quite sizable for this pension board this time, so I think the report and the appendices provide quite a lot of detail, but I'll perhaps just pick out some of the key background and updates of this introduction. So just to give you a quick reminder about what remedy is and what Matthews is. So the Sergeant remedy relates to the age discrimination that the courts held to have arisen from the transition protection arrangements when the 2015 career average scheme was introduced, about 10 years ago. Older scheme members were allowed to remain in their legacy final salary 1992 or 2006 scheme longer than younger members were. And because those younger members were not given that same opportunity to remain in what was generally the better legacy scheme, this was found to be discriminatory by the courts. So all active scheme members became members of the 2015 scheme on the 1st of April 2022. And those who were employed before April 2015 have the opportunity to be treated as having remained in the 1992 or 2006 scheme for that 7-year period from April 2015 to March 2022, or indeed to choose the 2015 scheme, which as time goes on may become more attractive. And this is known as the deferred choice underpin, and they're known as deferred choice members. The terminology is now getting quite confusing, I think, with all of this. The Matthews second options exercise came slightly later. That relates to certain former and current on-call firefighters who can now buy back 2006 modified scheme membership from the start of their service as part-time workers. Some people's service goes back to the 1960s, and hitherto the service had no reason to keep in touch with some of them, or indeed their surviving relatives. So this has been a very significant communications, explanation, data gathering exercise for these people who can buy back service a lot pensionable service way. We have now got to contacts for almost all of the potential eligible members. I think there's only about 10 people now for whom we cannot get any contact details via our own records or by the tracing agency. And again, as you'll probably be aware, there was an 18-month implementation period for the regulations for both sets of exercises, concluding in the end of March, just gone, March 25. But the government is expected to extend the Matthews, the retained on-call firefighters exercise to March 2026, although the regulations to bring that into effect look like they might be some time away. So we are still firmly focused on delivering remedying second options. So just to give you probably some particular updates, a good piece of news is that the 2024 remedy annual benefit and remedial service statements were issued to most active members around the end of June. You'll perhaps recall from previous reports they should have been issued by the annual benefit statement should have been issued by the end of August, September last year, and the remedial service statement by the end of March. That proved not to be possible due to data, software, regulations, various reasons. Pleased to say those for the active members, so people who are still actively employed in the scheme, they were issued by or around the end of June, and those members can therefore decide whether they wish to pay off backdated contributions or pay backdated refunds if they do choose to move from the 2015 scheme back to the 92 or 06 scheme for that 7-year period. They don't have to do that. They will actually choose when they retire, and they can they can leave those contribution adjustments until when they retire as well. But the issuing of the benefit statement and remedial service statement gives them the opportunity now to make those payments lump sum if they wish. Also, Sean has prepared and published a YouTube presentation giving a lot more explanation about the basis of those remedial service statements, what they do, what they don't do, where the numbers come from, which I think is extremely useful. That lasts for about an hour and a quarter. It's available on YouTube, and we have made the details of that available to all operational staff who are affected by this, because I think the RSS on its own is actually quite difficult to follow and probably generates as many questions as it answers. So I think Sean's presentation on that is extremely useful. And Again, you may recall that both West Yorkshire Pension Fund and I submitted a formal breach report to the pensions regulator when the statements weren't issued by the end of March. Pension board should have oversight of those. So the breach assessment and my actual breach report, which was based on Sean and West Yorkshire's templates, they can be found at Appendix B within your pack, and the board has asked to ratify those. It may become necessary to issue further reports to the regulator in regards to the statements that are still not issued. And I think that's not necessary yet, but it may become necessary. There may be a need for some further breach reporting. The delays to the statement, you may have seen the report, have led to circa 70 complaints or disputes raised within the internal dispute resolution process. We've had very few internal dispute resolution processes complaints raised, certainly since I've been scheme manager for a few years. I have about 70 of these. Whilst they're all basically the same, they all need to be checked individually, and different cohorts will need different answers. So that is actually turning sort of getting ready to respond to those, and responding to those formally is actually becoming quite a major piece of work. I'm in the process of preparing those responses. And again, just the National Injury to Feelings award process still trickles along. So this was it was agreed nationally that firefighters had sort of suffered inconvenience, uncertainty, etc. from the remedy process, and therefore an amount of money is to be paid to each eligible firefighter member of the pension scheme. It's called injury to feelings. That is being dealt with nationally, fortunately from my perspective, between the Fire Brigade Union and the Home Office, or now MHCLJ. Hopefully that will remain the case and we won't need to get involved. But as the scheme employer, the ultimate legal liability for that does rest with the CFA, not with the government. But so at the moment, we're not having to get involved. The new pensions dashboard, again, we've reported on this before. That's intended to enable people to access details of all their pensions in one place online. It will be going live over the next 2 or 3 years. Fire pension schemes are required to connect to it by the end of October. West Yorkshire are leading on that. That seems going well. We've supplied data for it to West Yorkshire, work with them on the data accuracy. I've formally confirmed West Yorkshire and their supplier is doing this on our behalf. But it is something that the regulator takes very seriously, and therefore, again, the board needs to be assured that actually we have got a proper handle on that. Again, I've made a number of individual decisions as scheme manager. They're fairly routine ones, some big numbers involved, but fairly routine. I would say they're summarised in the report. Just to draw to your attention as well that fire pensions has become a lot more complex over recent years. I know when I first became involved a few years back, being scheme manager, it's perhaps a half a day to a day a month activity. It's a lot more than that now. With everything that's going on, it's become a lot more complex. The number of people with experience and the skills is declining and are in demand. And essentially, and there's absolute merit in all the fire authorities operating in the same way. So the Local Government Association and the Scheme Advisory Board, who already provide considerable support to fire authorities and scheme managers, have launched a sort of a review process called Need for Change, which is looking at to what extent the LGA and the Scheme Advisory Board can provide enhanced support. And that's going all the way through to what is essentially a national scheme manager with a national team for participating fire authorities. So we provided quite a lot of baseline data for the LGA last month, and we've said that in principle we support that direction of travel towards a national scheme manager arrangement. Not signing up to it, we haven't been asked to do that yet. There'll be a lot of things to consider, but it certainly has its merits. So we're working with the LGA and other FRAs on that. West Yorkshire Pension Fund operates as our scheme administrator. That contract has been operating for nearly 5 years now, and that's its first end point, if you like. The contract provides for up to 10 years through a series of extensions. I've been working with Sean and Derbyshire and Nottinghamshire and with West Yorkshire to actually extend that for the next 2-year period, which again is a piece of work that needs to progress within the next few weeks really to get that done. But that's there are now very few administrators in the market. It's a very difficult area. It would be extremely disruptive to attempt to change administrators at the moment, even if we could find an administrator that actually would take us on, which is a moot point. So yeah, we are working. Fortunately, we can extend the contract by another 2 years and then beyond that. So we're working on doing that. And I'm updating the risk register as usual, just from a governance perspective. That I think concludes my introduction. As we've said, we've got Helen, our relationship manager and advisor from West Yorkshire online. Sean is here, unfortunately, for his final meeting because he's retiring come the end of August, which would be a great loss to us, Leicestershire, to us, Nottinghamshire, Derbyshire, and the wider fire pensions community. And obviously Jodie and Sarah as well. So that concludes my introduction, and happy to take with colleagues any questions or comments.
Right, well, thank you very much for your brief introduction. I can recall the last one you gave was of a similar style and information. And for non-active in understanding it, it's fairly complex. As Chair, I'd like to know, are we making, in simple language, are we making progress? Are we working within the government guidelines? Because the last meeting, that was a worry that we might fall foul of then, and those other obstacles that could appear in the way. So in simple terms, are we making progress, Colin?
Yes, we are making progress. I think there has been definitely some nice steps since the last meeting. So one of the big ones is that the annual benefit statement, remedial service statement for active members have been issued. Not yet for deferred members or pensioners. They get a slightly different one, but at least there is that's a good chunk, and that's something the FBU have been very closely involved with. So that's definite progress. We have now started paying on some of the Matthews cases. So with Leicestershire, we've paid out, I think, 6 or 7 death grants to we got in form of retained firefighters buying back service, and West Yorkshire have started processing some of the ongoing pension payments. So yes, we are definitely making progress, and the issuing of the ABS and the ISSs mean that West Yorkshire have got all their records or most of their records up to date now for the active firefighters, the active pension members, which means going forwards a lot of the business as usual process will become much more straightforward because their systems are now properly updated. So yes, we are and as I said, we've made good progress locally in contacting all the retained firefighters. We've only got 10 we haven't contacted. A number of them that we have contacted we've got processed because we are still being held up by government by needing to know new regulations. So second part of the question, yes, we are operating within the regulations and guidelines, but there are still a lot of things that need to be sorted at national level. Hence, in the report, I've said we've got about 100 of the former on-call firefighters. We can't progress their buyback of pension at the moment because they're either linked in with, they either became whole time at some point, or there's some other complication for which we need updated guidance on national regulations. And technically we're breaching because the deadline was the end of March 25, but the government will extend it to March 26. So yes, we are operating within the guidelines, but a lot of guideline regulations still needs to be finished.
Yeah.
That fair summary, Sean?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
I was going to jump on that comment, Councillor Harrison, that the government guidelines, it's less that we're not following the guidelines, it's more a lot of the cases can't be progressed because government still need to address those guidelines to actually produce them. And we were in a meeting today with the LGA where we're aware of a couple of points of litigation, and unfortunately government needs to go through the litigation before they even get to the point of writing any further regulations or amending current legislations, which means there are some cases where firefighter members, we might go one way or the other, and we're waiting for government, the judiciary, and then government again, depending on what the judiciary says. So some of these things we could well be waiting 3 or 4 years for.
Yes, so that sort of preempts my second question before throwing it out. What sort of deadline are we looking at trying to understand this? Because normal business and transactions and work, there is a perceived deadline on most things. And I just see this one, where on earth is it going to end up?
The simple answer is where we can make progress, we've been given deadlines, and we're confident, as long as nothing else happens that's unexpected, we're confident we'll hit those deadlines. But some of those deadlines are movable feasts. Colin mentioned the overall deadline for the Matthews call has already been moved, but the procedure of government means it can't be advanced through Parliament. But we know that legislation has been drafted to extend the deadline to March 26, and once that goes through Parliament, it will have a retrospective effect now. So the pension board can be assured that we haven't formally, we might have technically breached a deadline, but we haven't legally breached it, because that deadline is going to be moved by government. But what sits underneath that umbrella deadline are that CLG need to change some of the regulations. Those regulations need to be formally amended through Parliament, and CLG have already said those new additions, certain members, for instance, survivors of deceased firefighters who would have had access to this Matthews exercise were they still alive, more of their survivors will have access to a wider pension in the future once the regulations are amended through Parliament. But until then, we can't do anything with those cases. So we've told them there will be better news that we're giving you, but we don't have the legal power to do anything about it now. Government have already told us we've got to wait for the amended regulations to go through Parliament, and it's at that point that we'll have 12 months to deal with those cases. So although there's an umbrella March 26, some of the cohorts within that, we know if the amendment regulations don't go through until October 26, the deadline for those specific cohorts will be October 27, and so on and so forth. So there is already talk of a Matthews third exercise, because some of these things might be kids into Congress. With regards to a very specific cohort in the Sergeant McLeod remedy, there are a very small number of people that will have what's called, or may qualify for something called a contingent decision or a contingent decision claim. And government are struggling. They know they need to amend the regulations, but because the regulations that need amending are in primary legislation written by Treasury, not fire sector specific, CLG have no power over those. That legislation, and it's currently at ministerial level. How does that get changed so that the Treasury's primary legislation can be changed to address the issue for some firefighters who are working for us today that might theoretically be in a position to retire in 12 months' time if only they could make a claim for contingent decisions. And we are getting to the point where this chicken and egg is going to get in the way of people retiring. Governments are aware of that ticking time bomb for that very small cohort.
Which
so no one can give you an answer, unfortunately.
No, which is an unfair penalty to force upon people who could or should want to retire and then penalised because they're held up. So I think that's pretty awful, that is.
But governments are aware, and a solution, I'm sure, will be given. But then it's for the services and the pension boards to unpick and actually deliver, along with West Yorkshire Prime Minister.
Oh, thank you very much for that. Well, I'm going to move on unless anybody's got any other questions for those two. No, I'd like to welcome Helen to our meeting. Welcome, Helen.
Thank you.
And I don't know, I'm just keeping my fingers crossed. Maybe we're going to get a bit more uplifting information. But over to you.
No, I will not be the bearer of any uplifting information.
Ah,
So let's start with the client report. So you've got July's report. So really, just in the first instance, it's kind of more over to yourselves, which hopefully you've had a look at this. Does anybody have anything they want to raise within this July report or ask for a bit more information on?
is there anybody here who'd like to ask? It looks like you've got a free run on that one, Helen.
Right, well, that's fine. I'm assuming that that's all nice and self-explanatory. So just the only other kind of thing really is to give you just a bit more detail in terms of the annual benefit statements for active members. Just to so as Colin says, we've started to produce those, and Leicestershire have 224 members in scope for one of these ABS RSS. 170 have currently been sent out, which obviously leaves 54 outstanding. Within that 54, there are a number of different cohorts where it is not going to be possible to produce a statement, and they should have all received a letter letting them know that. We've just got 4 cases where we're waiting for some additional data from Leicestershire. They sent me some, and there was just a little bit more that needed doing on a couple of them. So that went out. The request went yesterday. So once that comes in, they'll get moving. And the rest, not that you really need to know kind of the full detail of what's gone on, but the rest, what we do is once the financial data goes in, we have a process that has about 9 stages in it that in theory does each stage of update into the member record so that it's fully in the rollback position, and everything can be produced from that rollback position. Unfortunately, the system that we're using doesn't do this for everybody, and basically discards cases on through the process. Mainly the ones it doesn't like to do are anybody that started after the 1st of April 2015. So I've now got people in the team working on doing some manual update to these records, and I'm hopeful that by the end of this week, any that we are in a position to get into the full rollback position and produce the ABS will be done. So at that point, you should just be in the position that the ones who haven't got that ABS RSS are the ones that just can't be done at the moment. So has anybody got anything on that part?
Is any comments on that? Yes. Colin?
So just to add to, thank you, Chair, just to add to Helen's statement. So paragraph 23 in my report just lists those categories where West Yorkshire definitely can't produce statements at the moment, just for reference purposes. Paragraph 23.
Okay. And any other comments?
Helen, could I just ask, I'm aware some services have had reports from you detailing the ones that haven't been issued, including ICRSSs. Are they on the way for our 3 services?
No.
I asked you.
Well, the services that have got the report are the ones that we've managed to get to the kind of end position. or as close to the end position as we possibly can, so that so those that we're still working on, and like I say, we've probably got potentially 30 for Leicestershire, that we can do some work on, and those statements can go. I was looking at producing them at the end of that.
Thank you.
If you want them before, I can. But that's kind of how it's been working. We've been doing this additional work, getting the missing data in, getting those ABS RSSs. So you're then left with, these haven't gone because they've got to transfer in, a scheme pays, whatever. These haven't gone because I don't seem to be able to find the financial data. We haven't got the GAD contribution extract, that kind of thing. So, because while we've got stuff that we can work on to clear, it kind of just makes that report quite a bit more complicated and having a bit of addition. But it's perfectly fine for me to send you one.
Right.
If you both like yours. Or...
No, let's be consistent with everyone else, Helen. Don't send it as for our 3 services until you're at that stage where everything is pretty hunkered down. Thank you.
Yeah, and I mean, what I would say, if you've got anybody that is chasing specifically, then if you just send me an email, I will have a look and see if it's possible for that particular one to be done.
Fine, thank you, Helen. Yes, I don't think any of the 3 services have had IDRPs from anyone who's due an ICRSS. So, and that's probably the only time we want to come back to you.
It's like talking different languages.
Yeah. Sorry.
I know, I love this meeting. It just happens and I go out thinking, well, what has happened? But anyway, that's where we are. Well, Helen, from a distance, it sounds like you're doing a fantastic job. It is complicated. I gather that from listening to the 2 colleagues here this morning, and your role can be no lighter than theirs, or even more of a burden if they're waiting on you all the time. But thank you, we really appreciate it. It's one of these jobs that, to a non-technical person involved in it, we obviously sit back and wonder what it's all about. But I can understand the intrigue and the depth of this whole thing. It's so different from any other business or organisation I've ever been involved with. So I am your prisoner. I will go along with wherever you're going, because that's the only way. You're the people who've got that knowledge and experience. So we're very beholden to you and grateful for all the work that's going on, because this is a very complex organisation and very complex problems you face on a daily basis. So we thank you on behalf of our team here in Leicestershire for all the effort you're putting in. It is fantastic, and I think probably not many people would thank you because they're so confused with what's been said. They're trying to work out where they are. But I can see through all that mist and fog, there's a massive amount of work and responsibility going on, and these affect many, many people's lives and families. So we're really appreciative and thank you for your time and effort and your visit to us this morning. Thank you. Yes, at the moment it is turning into a fairly thankless task, and there's just so much, and we appreciate that each individual wants their case sorting and wants their information, and to them it's really, really important, and we completely get that and we completely acknowledge that. But due to lots and lots of reasons, the ability to produce in the time frames that initially were out there, and now once they've passed that everybody wants, is just it's just not possible. I just think in terms of, forget the issues with actives and deferreds are more software related. But if you just think of the pensioners and the immediate choice pensioners, those
we didn't get sign off and full clarification on how to do the calculations until March 25, and the deadline was the 31st of March 25. So when this whole journey started, don't like the word, but anyway, we'd got 18 months to do those cases. By the time we'd got full clarification of data of legislation that was missing or incomplete, we'd got about 16 days. And now obviously the deadline's passed, so everybody wants their data urgently. And so now we're trying to cram that work into a much smaller period of time, and it's I've had better periods of my working life. Let's say that. So thank you for your kind words.
No, they're genuinely meant, and I'd like to call upon one of our officers now wishes to make comment. Yes.
Thank you, Helen, and thank you to the team and also to Sean and Colin. I'm yet to even begin to learn to speak pension. My suggestion would be post Fire and Rescue Service Life that you do an Audible book or a podcast or Microsoft Idiots Dummies Guide to the Pension Scheme. I suppose in all seriousness, Helen, we know you've got some additional resources in the team, and I think you had a little bit of a restructure. Is that kind of helping give you a dig out?
No. The problem is, at the moment, any new staff that we get mostly don't have pensions knowledge. Mm-hmm. And if they do have pensions knowledge, they don't have fire pensions knowledge. Yeah. And the majority of what is outstanding in terms of the RSS, whether we're looking at active deferred pensioners, you need a really good level of knowledge. So yes, it's going to help in the team. Yes, it's going to help with business as usual. It should certainly allow us to deal with retirements and requests for estimates more timely than we've currently been doing. But in terms of getting to the end of the kind of RSS process and probably Matthews, the people that we've currently appointed are not really going to make too much difference to that. We have, however, appointed what's called a member services manager. So that's somebody kind of at my equivalent level, and they do have quite a bit of practical fire pensions experience, and they are coming from another administrator, but they have to give 3 months notice, so they are not starting till the end of October. And obviously, and they are coming from somewhere that doesn't use our pensions admin system, so they're going to have to learn that as well. So it is going to be a while before we kind of see the benefits of that appointment. So until then, we're just struggling along as best we can.
Well, we wish you luck, Helen. It's extremely important, and I'm sure eventually these families will probably never even think of it, but you'll have that behind you that through your diligence, you change people's lives probably. And I think it's as important as that. So we're very grateful. Thank you for your time with us this morning, and we look forward to seeing you again in the future. Right, thank you. So are you sure nobody's got any other questions they want to ask me about any?
That's £2.50 for therapy charges.
Yeah.
No, you've got a clear run there, Helen. I don't think, we're just not able to ask you anything other than we've just been overwhelmed with your knowledge and all that's going on. It's vital and it's important, but we're helpless. We're just sat here. We can't do anything to contribute to that other than our best wishes and support. We look forward to seeing you again in the near future.
Yeah, all right, no worries. Thank you very much.
Take care. All the best.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Right. Can I now ask for a vote of acceptance of Colin's report, please? Can I have an indication that we accept it. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Right. We now move on to item 8, an initial dispute resolution procedure, firefighter pension scheme, firefighter compensation scheme. Yes, Colin again. Yes.
Colin, shoot.
It is Colin. Thank you, Mr. Harrison. Yes, I'll keep my introduction to this one quite brief also. So this is bringing the draft internal disputes resolution procedure to you. As I mentioned during my introduction, we've had very few complaints or disputes via the IDRP procedure in recent years. We have now got a whole block of them relating to the delayed annual benefit statement, remedial service statement, and I also had one also relating to other aspects of delays, consequence on the remedy process as well. And I expect to get more the reasons we've just discussed. So the fire authority should have an internal dispute resolution procedure. So I don't. If the fire authority has had one previously, it's certainly not been recent, and I haven't been able to locate it. So given it's been on my list for a while, given that it was starting to become much more necessary, it was coming up as fast as to make sure that I actually put one properly in place. Also, the Local Government Association, the Schema Advisory Board, have also been looking at this, and they issued updated guidance, quite a whole pack of updated guidance on the IDRPs during May. So I've bit the bullet at that point, and I've drafted the new IDRP procedures document that's sort of before you. Essentially, this follows the national requirements, as you would expect. So most of what's in it is governed by legislation, and there's references to legislation in it. Other aspects of it are a guidance that has been agreed at national level with the Scheme Advisory Board about longer deadlines than the statutory minimums, etc., being allowed. So I thought it was essential to put one in place. The CFA is actually required by law to have one, so that's very clear within legislation. So there should be a document that the CFA has signed, notwithstanding that it follows the national template. There should actually be one that the CFA has signed on. But I've drafted this. It essentially comprises 2 stages. So members of any member, former member, potential member of the fire pension scheme can raise a dispute or a complaint. That initially goes to the scheme manager, myself, as a stage 1 complaint. I look at it, investigate it, determine the outcome, write to the complainant. That's the stage 1. If that person remains unhappy with either the process that I've followed or the outcome that I've determined, they can then go to stage 2. I think hitherto stage 2, if they had occurred, would have been heard by the Chief Fire Officer. The updated national guidance now is very clear that should be heard by a panel of the CFA. So that is reflected in this document that's before you now, that if anything proceeds to stage 2 would go to a panel of CFA elected members, and Lauren, as your monitoring officer, would arrange for that panel and make sure it's suitably advised. And then in the event that the person still remains unhappy and thinks they've got a good case after stage 2, then that would refer them to the pensions regulator. That would then have exhausted the internal process, and they would need to go to, and they would need to do anything else, obviously the pensions regulator. That is a summary. The LGA's guidance issued in May did have some detailed inconsistencies in it. So there's a few bits that don't quite tie up, where they've either not quite some drafting errors, or they've got one set of deadlines in one document, another set of deadlines in another. So the LGA tell me they're hoping to issue an updated guidance, I think, at the end of this month. So I will obviously review that. If any changes to this document in the light of that, I'll incorporate those, but they shouldn't have any material significance. And then this document, subject to any comments, will then proceed to the next CFA meeting to seek informed approval, and then we'll be properly compliant, and there'll be a document that the CFA has approved, which it's required to do, and we'll have a working document that can be used by ourselves and scheme members and the various eligible people, which I think will be much better for everybody. They're happy to take any comments or
Yeah,
questions.
indeed. Any questions anywhere? Yes, please.
I'd just like to ask whether the procedure will go through this staff consultation forum or whether it comes through this board instead of that, or both.
I see no reason why it wouldn't go through both, as long as we didn't get into a conflict of interest between SDF and
Yeah.
my preference, Graham, would be through here, if that's acceptable to you. So we have a joint consultation meeting with management and the representative bodies, obviously, of which the FBU is a key player. Under normal circumstances, policies and procedures, guidance documents, that kind of thing would go through consultation or negotiation, as you'd expect. I think, given the nature of it and its linked to the CFA and Gemma, it would be my preference if it came through here, but I'm not wedded to that.
I think the intention was for it to go to the CFA in August.
Yeah.
Can I propose it's presented at both, but feedback comes through here or direct to Colin with that?
I think as long as the feedback is dealt through one meeting and
Yes, so
there's two.
through
Yeah.
this one is the.
Yes.
Yeah.
That'd be-
Yeah.
I don't.
I think so, yes. Just looking at page 7.9, the recommendation, the board is asked to review the new draft internal dispute resolution procedure, provide any comments to the scheme manager and the monitoring officer prior to being submitted. So we're asking to approve that recommendation. So is it your wish that we approve it? Can I see hands in the air, please, for anybody who approves that? Yes?
Can you say what it is we're approving again, please?
Well, yes, we're approving the board recommendation is asked to review the new draft internal dispute resolution procedure and provide comments to the scheme manager, to the monitoring officer prior to it being submitted to CFA for approval.
So, Chair, I think we'd need to insert a word or two there, if you don't mind, Gemma, from an approval point of view, because it will be subject to consultation with the
Yeah,
body.
okay. So good. Do we all understand that?
Yeah.
So we're approving the consultation, which I'm
Yeah.
happy to do.
Yeah, yeah.
Approving the draft document.
Yeah, it's a draft document,
Yeah,
so
Consultation.
it's not.
Well, in effect, you're only being asked to kind of look at it today. And
Yeah.
make any comments, you're not
Yeah.
approving it,
Yeah.
it's going to the
The
CFA.
CFA would be the good news.
So if no comments are received, then it will go to the
So
CFA.
I would suggest the board comments on it. If it's got any comments, to go through either Colin or Gemma.
Yeah.
Then it can go on out, it can be consulted with through Colin and Sarah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then it'll go to full fire authority.
Yeah, I mean, the intention was for it to go to CFA on the 13th of August. Would you prefer that little bit of consultation time and it go to the meeting on the 1st of
I
October?
defer to the FBU and Colin on that position.
So then normally there's a consultation period, which is why I asked about staff
Yeah.
consultation forum, of which the 13th of August would be too soon for
Yeah.
that consultation
Should be
period.
October.
Unless there's
yeah.
an urgent need to be approved prior to that.
I'm not aware of any disputes. Is anyone else?
No.
So
Yeah. Colin?
Yeah, just to say, to be fair, when I prepared this, I was coming up against this local pension board meeting. I was mindful there might be some internal procedure we also need to follow, but I felt it was important to get this to the board, and it is essentially reflecting what the fire authorities do and the national template. So that much as we need to consult on it, I don't believe there's anything in this that should be contentious or difficult. It is, I think, a matter of following the process. But I felt it was important to get it here today, and then you're quite right, Graham, we can pick up in the internals. From a personal perspective, I would like to get it approved sooner rather than later because it is a legal requirement. And as I said, I do have 70 of these sitting before me at the moment, mainly related to the delays in the ABS RSS. I think as long as the FBU are comfortable that we work to this in the meantime, because it is essentially what it is, to be honest.
At the end of the day, we have to have a process for resolving disputes
Yeah, we
in a
do.
timely fashion,
Yeah,
don't we?
yeah.
So I wouldn't
Yeah.
want to split hairs
No.
around odd words that get battered and backwards and forwards. I know that's not Graham's style. So I think as long as we can close it off in as soon as possible, but agree that it's a framework to work.
Yeah, that'll work through this at the moment.
Would you like to try then for the earlier times frame?
Yes, so
If you can manage it, because now we're here, there's legal obligations to comply. And I think really, as a layperson, it sounds all fairly logic. Everybody has to play together good. We have certain standards, rules we all have to abide by. So there's nothing there that would be disruptive, I don't think, as a layperson, but you're sitting there doing it because it just has to be able to work properly. As you say, if you've got legislation, time limits that we've got to comply with, well, then we don't want to be caught short because we're still arguing over procedure to argue to resolve problems. Would that be?
Yeah, we can shorten consultation period as represented bodies through agreement. So now you've mentioned the date, we can work towards the fire authority date and try and provide comments prior to that.
Yeah, lovely. Okay, well, thank you for that. Oh, yes.
I was just going to say, looking at it, it doesn't look any different to what I'm used to in another service. I suppose the issue at the moment is the IDRPs that are related to the statements, of which you say we've got 70. So at the moment, are you reviewing those and are we doing a holding statement, or is the response the same to all of them?
I'm reviewing them at the moment. We've been working with Sean on these, so the response will be different because there are different cohorts. And
Right.
as Helen said, some people have had theirs and some haven't. So I've held back, partly because I've been doing lots of other things. But I've held back doing formal responses yet because I want to be absolutely clear what the individual is, what the actual position is.
Yeah.
Three to the individuals. But time is ticking on, and I will be.
And are you using the process that you drafted is what you're sort of going working to?
Yes, I will work with this because this is and even if we haven't got this before you today, that's the process I'll be following because that's the national, essentially that's the national process, so that's what every other fire authority does more or less. So yes, I'll be working this anyway, but again, from a governance perspective, the sooner now, given it we are now getting these, and there will be more of them. Yeah, the sooner we get this, I think the food process, it just tidies things up, I think.
All right. Well, thank you for that. Yes.
Yeah, just on that, I think we would be happy to agree to work towards the new procedure as it's been updated, because I think that would be better for the current IDRPs that are going on. So yeah, we're happy to agree that and then work towards agreeing it formally for that fire authority.
All right. Well, the next bit we've got to can we put the recommendation forward for the resolution. If I propose from the chair, do we all agree?
Yes, Chair.
Can I see hands? I like to see hands. Thank you. Thank you very much. Agreed. Excellent. Well, thank you for your help on that one. We negotiated it well, didn't we? Wow, blimey. Anyway, so I'm on item 9 now, which is employees' representative input. So is there any comments or inputs? Oh, you're very kind, sir. Thank you. Right. So we're now on to item 10, the date of the next meeting.
So we'd originally got the date of the next meeting as September, but I think we're thinking that may be a little bit too soon after this meeting. So we are looking at the 22nd of October for the next meeting of this board, provided that's suitable for everyone.
Yeah, I would have thought, yes.
Sorry, I was going to ask if I could have an AOB.
Yes.
Very short AOB.
Yes.
We'll get that new date circulated.
Yeah,
Okay.
all right. So we're all happy we agree the date. Right. Any other business?
Chair, it's with great sadness that we say thank you to our colleague, and I have to say on a personal note, friend Sean, who I've worked with for a long time across the region. I think has been said there are many firefighters and pensioners who've benefited from Sean's expertise. I think his subject matter expertise in pensions is something that we can't speak enough of, and I know that if we said that his skills and expertise were like rocking horses, etc., then that wouldn't be extending it too far. So on a personal note, but also on a professional note, Sean's been there to support me through a lot of stuff over the years, and absolutely his skills, knowledge and expertise, both from an HR point of view and from a pensions point of view, will be sadly missed. So Sean, wishing you all the best in your retirement and your future endeavours. And very selfish.
Well,
Thank you, Chair.
well, that's a wonderful tribute and heartfelt, and sounds like you very much deserve that. And we wish you well for your future. The obvious word from the chair is, who's going to replace this splendid gentleman?
Funnily enough, he's irreplaceable. Genuinely, Sean has a skill set, and I'll say it in front of him, because of Sean's expertise across employment law, HR and pensions. Sean's abilities across those and his nerdiness for legislation, it has to be said.
And that's the word I use.
Yeah, I know. Sean has an acumen across legislation that is, in my experience, quite second to none. And I think the combined skill sets that he brings will be very, very difficult to replace. This morning, Sarah and I had a conversation which bizarrely was being echoed in Derbyshire behind Sean's back, literally as we were speaking. And we do need to think from a regional point of view, because of course Sean works across all three services in the immediate coterminous to provide that service. We do need to think how we're going to provide that support, not necessarily just from an expertise point of view, but I think the empathy, passion and knowledge that Sean can bring to those conversations with people in difficult circumstances, you know, particularly who are maybe terminally ill or widows in our experience who are struggling to get to grips with pensions. Sean's got an innate ability to work his way through that, and I don't think we'll replace that.
Well, we can replace a role, but you'll never replace a lifetime's experience. Sadly, that's life. That's how it is. You should have had an apprentice 10 years ago.
He's tried. He's tried, but everybody gives up.
Everybody gives up. Okay. All right. Well, that's probably a good point then to end. And to thank you all for your attendance today and wish you well on a safe journey for those who are travelling onwards. I declare the meeting closed. Thank you. Thank you.